This is yesterday's entry. This from the day before it. And overall, this little book that I have here contains the last 5 months of my life. But not only that, I've been journaling more or less consistently for the last 10 years. I started my first journal back in 2016. It was for a trip back then. And since then, I didn't really write much. But in the last 3 years, I really got consistent. And so, as you can see, now I write about a page per day. And I can tell you, it has made my life significantly better. But throughout the years, I've tried many different types of journaling with varying intensity and with varying combinations. So basically, I've tried everything. And I can tell you, the type of journaling that I do right now is the only type of journaling that works, or rather that has worked for me in the sense that it has made my life better. And so, in this video, I'm going to discuss this type of journaling and also the other types of journaling that did not work, but we'll focus on the one that did work, obviously. So, how does that type of journaling work and why does it work? Well, here's how it works. Whenever I do something, I write it down. Whenever I make a mistake, I write it down. And then at the end of the day, I analyze myself and how I did compared to my goals. And then I also plan the next day. And sometimes, I write down something fun, like which mountain peaks I've been to, what were the best experiences this year. Sometimes I write fun things or the things that I'm grateful for. But generally speaking, I write down what I do, which mistakes I made, and compare myself to my goals. This is how I do it. And so what does that look like in practice? Well, in practice, it looks something like this. I wake up, I write down 5 a.m., woke up. Then 5:15, start working. I write down 5:15, start working. Then I write down 6:25, stopped working. Then I go eat breakfast, do some stretches, some push-ups, and then I return and then I write down 6:55, stopped eating breakfast, resumed working. And that's how I do it. So basically every time that I start a new task or stop an old one, I write down. At this time, I stop doing that. At that time, I start doing this. And whenever I make a mistake, like for instance, let's say 3:45 p.m., grabbed my phone and scrolled for 60 minutes. Whenever I make a mistake, which I do quite often, but of course less and less because I constantly self-analyze, I write down why did I make that mistake, what triggered it, how could have it been prevented, what stopped me from stopping the mistake halfway through when I noticed that I was making a mistake, and what do I learn from it. So whenever I make a mistake, I confront myself in my diary and write down why the hell did I make that? How can I prevent that? And that way, I basically collect an index of mistakes that I make. And that way, I constantly get reminded, hey, yesterday you said that's a mistake. So today, you're not going to do it. And that way, my life gets significantly better. Sometimes, of course, you forget your own lessons. But the fact that you write it down and confront yourself and get reminded that, that's a mistake. And, you've had this problem already for a week, so time to fix it. This fixing my mistakes makes my life significantly better. And also this, where you document what you do basically minute for minute, also makes my life better because, for one, it makes me see how I'm using my time and whether I'm wasting much time. And also, this is a bit of another bonus, whenever I do something hard and I write it down, it gives me intense joy. And so I get more motivated to do things, because then I know I can write them down. And so that's double the motivation. But of course, writing down your mistakes is the most important thing. And by the way, writing down both your mistakes and your times has the combined advantage that you spend less time on your phone, because instead of grabbing your phone, you grab your diary and you document, hey, I started this at this time, I stopped this at this time, I started the new thing at this time. And so you just grab your phone less overall, and you get to see what your life actually looks like, and whether you actually are making progress, or whether you're working 1 hour a day but think that you're working 8 hours a day, because somehow it takes up 8 hours, but then you look in your diary and see, actually I just worked for 1 hour. So basically your diary and writing down what you did and also the mistakes that you made makes you see who you really are and whether you are really good or actually a piece of shit. And this is wonderful, because this is how you make progress. You make progress by seeing reality for what it is and then improving upon it. Now, when I write down the times and the mistakes that I make, I also write down at the end of the day how I compared the day to my goals. For instance, the goals for this month for me are 2,000 exercises. An exercise is, for instance, 1 push-up is 1 exercise, or 1 pull-up is 1 exercise, or a minute of plank is 10 exercises, or 20 meters of elevation gain on a bike. That's 100 meters of elevation gain on a bike is 20 exercises. So I write down how many exercises I do each day, because I really need to be more consistent. I also have the goal to do 100 conversations, to meditate for 10 hours, to go to bed no later than 8:30, and to have a screen time of less than an hour. Those are my 5 main goals for August. And so I confront myself, hey, how did I make progress today towards these monthly and towards my bigger goals? This has the function that I avoid a scenario where, 3 years passed and I'm still not a single bit closer to my goals. I don't know where these 3 years went. I want to avoid this situation very, very badly. And so I compare myself to my goals every single day. And I used to not do that, but then you just don't make progress, even though your day-to-day life still feels exhausting. So you may as well just document and compare yourself to your goals. And then after I compare myself, after I have written down the times and the mistakes throughout the day, in the evening, I once again write down how I compare to my goals. But sometimes I also write some fun things here and there, like which mountain peaks I've been to, which my favorite memories were, who am I grateful for, and stuff like that. Like generally fun stuff. And then I write down for the next day what I'm gonna do, with also kind of the same level of detail. So I write down, for instance, 5, get up, 5:15, start working. Then 6:45, start eating breakfast. Then 7:15, start working again on that thing. Then, and so on, and so on, and so on. And basically I plan all my day, but mostly not my whole day, but mostly up until the point where I hit the gym. So, which is approximately at 12. So basically from 5 to 12, I know exactly what I need to be doing each day. And this is wonderful because you all know this with the decision fatigue in the morning. And also it makes me not waste time because I know exactly what I should be doing. Now, do I follow it consistently? I would say more or less yes. So I would say the things that I planned for the day have about 50 to 70% accuracy, which is actually really good if you think about it. Because, but the thing is, you do get better, because at the beginning you struggle to really understand how long something is going to take, but you do get used to it. And so after a month, I would say you can get to this 50 to 70% consistency and accuracy. And this is really good. And yes, so this is how I do it. I write down throughout the day, I write down what I do and the mistakes that I make and how I get better from these, of course. And then at evening, I reflect on the day, whether it was good, whether it was bad, compared to my goals, of course, and potentially set new goals, renew the old goals. And sometimes I also write about fun things. And then finally, I plan my day, how the next day is going to look like, what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to split it across the hours. And this type of journaling has made my life significantly better. And now you may be saying, well, but it is kind of depressive or very annoying that every time you start doing something, you take out your diary and you write down what you did. And I would say, well, then stay a loser. Because the thing is, being accountable and confronting yourself is not a very high price to pay if the outcome is that you get better every day. I know a lot of people who don't write diary, but guess what? They're also not making progress. And the people who don't write diary, but or journal, but make progress, are the people who already live in an atmosphere that is very productive. So when you live with a bunch of winners, then journaling and writing diary this way where you confront yourself may not be necessary. But the people who don't live in that environment and also don't write and confront themselves usually don't make progress. And so if this is the price to pay to get better, if just writing down what you do is the price to get better, I am willing to pay the price. Some people are not, but then stay a loser. Stay exactly where you are. Because when you don't confront yourself, when you don't pay attention to what you're doing each day, then there is about a 99% chance that you're making significantly less progress than you should. I can tell you from experience, for instance, that you may think that you are consistent or that you are working hard or that you are disciplined, but when you actually write it down, you will see that you are not consistent, that you are not disciplined, and that you are not hardworking. But when you don't write it down, your brain will convince you that you actually are. And so that gap is usually massive. And why would you want to miss out on that? Unless, of course, you have 10 out of 10 supreme self-awareness, then I guess it's not possible, not necessary. But I don't know anyone who has 10 out of 10 supreme self-awareness that they have such high self-awareness that this wouldn't be necessary, right? So do it. And then if it still doesn't work after a while, then you can quit. But otherwise, try it and you will see that it does make a massive difference. And now also, when it comes to journaling, not only does it keep you away from your phone, but it also has the benefit that you get to brainstorm ideas, that you have a better time falling asleep because you are not on your phone. And people find you more interesting when they see that you write your diary and they ask, hey, are you writing diary and stuff like that. So you have another benefit on top of that. And also your life just gets better, as we've discussed, because you stay accountable, you confront yourself, and so on. Now, what are the types of journaling that did not work? Well, there is a couple. The first type of journaling that did not work is the type of journaling where you try to think about decisions. For instance, should I date the 6 out of 10 who begs to be my girlfriend, but with whom I am afraid to be seen with? You know, if you're inexperienced, you will write something like, am I just being superficial? Should I give her a chance? Should I not give her a chance? Is this true love? Am I a piece of shit because I can't love? Something like that. But the actual answer is that if you're not really attracted to her, you're not doing her a favor if you enter a relationship with her. And a lot of the times it is this way, that you have a very simple and obvious solution, but you are not willing to make it. And so a lot of people use journaling as cope so that they don't have to make these decisions. But coping in written form is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to stay accountable and to really see how much we suck and what pieces of shit we are. We're trying to see this. We're not trying to get comfort or cope. We're trying to do the exact opposite. We're trying to seek shame and dishonor and embarrassment because we want to see how we actually are. We want to seek those things and not cope. So trying to journal, to analyze and to contemplate and to make a decision does not work if the decision does have this very obvious solution, but you're just not doing it because you're scared or because you're lazy or whatever reason. This does not work. This is a waste of time. Another type of journaling when it comes to decisions that is also a waste of time is when you need to decide whether you should do something or not. For instance, if you want to decide whether you should quit your current degree program and start a new one, then it doesn't make sense to journal about it because fundamentally, what are you going to write about? What makes a lot more sense is, for instance, in this situation, to visit the lecture of the other degree program next to your own lectures and then to see, hey, do I like it? Do I not like it? So in the first case, in the first case of making decisions through journaling, you have very obvious solutions and then you should take them. You should not journal about them. Like the example with the 6 out of 10 who you are not attracted to, but who wants you. In this case, you have a very obvious solution. You should just do it. In the other case, where there is no obvious solution, the solution won't come from journaling either. You must just try it. And so, journaling to make a better decision is a waste of time in 9 out of 10 cases, I would say. Unless, of course, you are able to discover that actually it is this obvious thing, then of course it's good. But usually that's not what happens. Usually people write in order to cope, and this is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to get accountable. The second type of journaling that is useless is what a lot of white girls do in cafes. So they journal, how do I feel? How does my body feel? Did I heal from my trauma? How does the sun feel on my skin? How does the coffee feel in my head? And all this kind of stuff. This is a waste of time because when you are trying to get self-awareness and presence, you should not use a journal because the point of presence is that there is as little as possible between you and reality. So why should you add a diary in between you and reality? Why, when your goal is to be present, just be present? You don't need to write a diary to be present. If, of course, that gives you 10 out of 10 pleasure to write down how does the skin feel or how does the sun feel on my skin, then of course do it. And yeah, do it. If it's fun, it's fun. It's better than video games, it's better than scrolling. But I would say it's a waste of time. Now, the third type of journaling that I have noticed is more or less a waste of time is gratitude journaling. Sometimes in my standard journal or diary, I write down the things that I'm grateful for, and more often than not, I write my friends, hey, I really appreciate you, or I love you, mama, or I'm grateful for you. So I write those things very often, actually. And gratitude journaling, I would say, has too low of a return on investment if you are already doing these things and if you are already priming yourself to see the things that you're grateful for. But if, of course, you are in bad mental health, then brainstorming 20 things that you're grateful for a day for a few weeks, it's probably worth it. But otherwise, I would say the return on investment is a bit too low, so I don't do it because I already have supreme mental health. I never have negative thoughts, and I would say I don't want to sound arrogant because when I am arrogant, then I feel worse in my mind. But I would say I extremely hard. I mock everyone extremely hard when it comes to mental health and how it feels to be inside my mind. Fundamentally because I don't live like a victim, but also because I am very present, I am very grateful, I do all these different things. And so my mind and the thoughts that I have are just very beautiful all the time. Sometimes, of course, I do have a bit of a worse phase, but the thing is, what I call a bad phase is still paradise for someone, for the average person, I would say. So gratitude journaling just is not really useful for me, but for someone else, probably is. And nothing gets gratitude. Gratitude is extremely important. And let me tell you something else that is kind of related to this concept of gratitude. When I started to do photography, one thing that I noticed is that my surroundings got a lot more beautiful because I was primed to look at beautiful things. Because, you know, when you have a camera, you typically photograph the beautiful things. And so I primed myself to see the beautiful things. And I did. And to this day, I still do so. And gratitude journaling also does the same thing, where you prime yourself to see the good things in life. And this is wonderful. However, for me personally, the return on investment is too low because my mental health is already supreme. So do it if you must. I have nothing against it. As a matter of fact, I support it. But most of the time, if your mental health is already good, I would say it's not necessary. You would be better off just spending that time with friends. Now we've discussed the type of journaling that does work, where you write down what you do and which mistakes you make and also plan the next day. And we've also discussed the types of journaling that don't work, that are a waste of time, or rather that don't make your life better, which is coping before decisions. That's not going to make your life better. This type of awareness and self-reflection and how does the sun feel on my skin, this is also a waste of time. And what's also probably a waste of time that I don't do is gratitude journaling. Now, when it comes to journaling, I want to give you 3 more pieces of advice because those are really important. And the first is the most important one, and it is to be extremely brutally honest. If you lie to yourself just a little bit, you will start to lie more and more over time until you get to the point where you can't tell truth from lie apart. And you might say that this is kind of a stereotype that the writers and authors use, or something like that, but it is actually this way. If, for instance, you never write down how much you're actually working in a day, you may become convinced that you're working 16 hours a day, even though it's like 4 when you actually write it down and the other is just wasted. And what happens then is because you believe that you're working 16 hours a day, what's likely gonna happen is that you'll start to feel burnt out after a while because you tell yourself and you tell others, well, I'm working 16 hours a day. But when you write down, hey, I'm actually just working 4 hours a day, you get to avoid those kind of lies that then spiral out and make your life significantly worse. And also, if you lie, then you punish your future self that actually did make that progress. So for instance, if you underestimate your screen time, then when your screen time is actually low, you won't feel as much of a pleasure from writing it down that you would have. So essentially, lying to yourself is the opposite of delayed gratification. The second rule that is really important is to always stay consistent, or rather always to stay humble. You see, although I have been more or less really consistent for the last 3 years, what's actually the case is that I have been consistent for a year, then I did not write for a year, and then I wrote again for a year. And this is also what this journal is a part of. It is part of the year that I then wrote. And guess what? The year that I did write was amazing. The year where I then did not really write was shit. And the year that I have now written since was amazing again. And so every time that my life improves, I get a little bit of this temptation to just stop journaling and to stop confronting myself because, it's diminishing returns. But guess what? Every time I then stop, after a few days or weeks, my life slowly gets worse in subtle ways until after a month or so, it is shit again. And so then I remind myself, and so then I see I should probably return to the things that have brought me the progress to begin with. And I have been through that cycle now a few times, and now I don't want to be in that cycle again. And so now I journal no matter what. Of course, there's still some day here and there that I miss, but that's no big deal because I would say through 30 days of the month, I'm consistent for maybe 27 of those. So I am really consistent. And if there's a day here and there that I miss, it's not that bad. But whenever I start missing too many days because I convince myself that actually writing diary doesn't bring you bitches, and I stop writing diary, that my life just gets worse for some reason. And so from now on, I'm no longer quitting ever again. I'm staying consistent because I don't want to live in cycles of ascent and decline. I just want ascent, not ascent and decline, ascent and decline. I don't want to remain at the same level. I want to rise. This is why I really want to stay consistent and not be arrogant and tell myself, well, it's a waste of time. I'm so much better than this. Journaling is for the betas, and I can just do the things and not journal because this takes up so much time and attention. This is really bad. This type of this thing that you tell yourself. It is very significant to stay consistent and to not convince yourself that you are better than your journal. Because when you convince yourself that you are better than your journal, or rather your past self, will start to mug you. And this is bad when your past self is better than you. And now, the third rule applies to when you actually accidentally quit. Like sometimes, especially in the previous years, I would miss a day, and then I would miss another day, and then I would tell myself on the third day, well, now I have to write for the 2 previous days and also for today, so that's 3 days, and I don't have time for that, so I'm gonna do it next day. And then you get to a point where you actually don't write for 3 weeks or something like that, sometimes even for 3 months. And so to break this cycle of you don't write and then the friction to writing the next day increases even more and then even more and then even more, I just write one sentence. I just write, for instance, the last few days have been mixed. And then I move on to writing as usual. Sometimes, of course, I write more if I feel like it. But if I need to get consistent again, I just write one sentence. I just write, yeah, the last few days were decent. The last few days were mixed. The last few days were kind of mid or whatever. You write one sentence, and that's how you regain consistency. And so, let's summarize this video. So write properly, to journal properly, to make progress with journaling. You write down what you do each day and the mistakes that you make. And you also plan the next day. You compare yourself to your goals. And sometimes you also write fun things like gratitude and the things that were well or stuff like that, you know? The types of journaling that don't work are the type where you try to cope before making a decision, where you try to reflect how the sun feels on your skin, or more often than not, gratitude journaling itself is also not really productive if you already have supreme mental health. And the rules with journaling are: number one, brutal honesty. Number two, you stay humble and don't tell yourself that you're better than journaling. And by extension, you therefore stay consistent. And number three, when you then fail for a few days, you just pretend as if it never happened and you just write the sentence and continue as usual. And this way, I believe, you will be able to really confront yourself and really make progress. Because I've been doing this for the last approximately year and it has really worked. And I've been doing this for the year before that as well. But, you know, in the year between this year and the year before that, I did not do it and my life was not so good as a result. So I'm telling you, this type of journaling where you constantly confront yourself does wonders. And so, my name is Khalil. My goal is to inspire 10,000 good decisions. And if this video helped you, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.